3-2. Mr. Martin, Mr. Payton are present with counsel. Can the attorneys state their names for the record, please, starting with the people?
Good morning, Your Honor. Brading on behalf of the people of the state of California.
Thank you.
Good morning, Megan Eisenberger on behalf of the people.
Thank you.
Good morning, Judge Reed Kingsbury on behalf of them, Tula Payton, who is seated to my right.
Thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor. Wendy Parisi on behalf of Mr. Martin, who is present before the court.
All right, thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please swear in the jury?
The 12 jurors, please stand and raise your right hands. Only the 12 jurors, not the alternates. Do you understand and agree that you will carefully consider the case being heard in this court, and that you will reach a verdict based only on the evidence presented to you and the instructions on the law given by the court?
Yes.
Thank you. Please be seated. Will the 4 alternate jurors please stand and raise their right hands? Do you understand and agree that if called upon to do so, that you will carefully consider the case being heard in this court, and that you will reach a verdict based only on the evidence presented to you and the instructions on the law given by the court? Thank you.
Madam Clerk. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Department 9B. It's going to take a while for I'm used to saying that. I've been saying 42 for so long. Sorry for the delay. As you can imagine, not just the first day of the trial, but just the first day of the trial in a new courtroom. There was a few hiccups, so my apologies for keeping you waiting. Also, you may notice there are some extra transportation officers here today. I don't want you to take any cue from that. They're the training exercise. It's having officers have been officers for some time training new officers. So again, take no cue from that. I'm going to read some pre-instructions to help you during the trial, and then counsel, assuming there's time, will start their opening statements. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I'm now going to describe how this trial will be conducted and what we'll be doing. The first step of the trial is the people's opening statement. The defense may choose to give an opening statement at that time or later. The purpose of an opening statement is to give you an overview of what the attorneys expect the evidence to show. This would not be the time for the attorneys to argue their case. Next, the people will offer evidence. Evidence includes the sworn testimony of witnesses and exhibits admitted into evidence. You must only consider the evidence that's admitted in this courtroom. After the people present their evidence, the defense may also present evidence, but not required to do so, because Mr. Payton and Mr. Martin is presumed to be innocent. They do not have to prove that they are not guilty. They have pled not guilty to the charges, which is a complete denial. Each witness will first be questioned by the side that's been asked the witness to testify. This is called direct examination. The other side is permitted to question the witness. This is called cross-examination. The first attorney may conduct redirect examination and so forth. Documents or other objects referred to during the trial are called exhibits. Each exhibit will be given a number and marked to be clearly identified. Exhibits are not evidence unless admitted into evidence. If admitted into evidence, you'll see these exhibits during your deliberations. After you've heard all the evidence, I'll instruct you on the law that applies to this case, and the attorneys will then argue their case. Again, after you've heard the arguments and instructions, you'll retire to the jury deliberation room for deliberations. I promise to make every effort to avoid keeping you waiting, but there will be delays. Just think of this as presenting a play. Many steps may be taken during the presentation to the jury, and a lot of work is done outside of your presence, and I'll be hearing the case right along with you for the first time. Each trial has unanticipated developments that throw off the schedule or raise legal issues that have to be resolved before the case can proceed. At these times, the attorney's and I may need to have conversations outside of your presence, either as a conference at the sidebar or asking you to step out. These discussions help narrow the issues to help these cases to proceed smoothly and use your time as efficiently as possible. And the attorneys are having a conversation. Don't guess to what we're talking about, and you can take that opportunity to stretch if you choose to. I may not always grant an attorney's request for a conference. Do not consider my granting or denying a request for a conference as any indication or my opinion of how the evidence regarding the evidence going forward. Again, you're welcome to bring tea or coffee or any beverages you wish to do so. I'll now explain some basic rules and procedures required to ensure both sides receive a fair trial. Our system of justice requires that trials be conducted in open court and the parties presenting the evidence and the judge deciding the law that applies to the case. It would be unfair to the parties if you receive any additional information from any source because that information may be unreliable or irrelevant, and the parties would not have an opportunity to examine or respond to it. Your verdict must be based only on the evidence presented during the trial in this court and the law that I provide to you. During the trial, do not talk about the case or about any of the people or subjects involved in this case with anyone, not even your family, friends, spiritual advisors, or therapists. You may only say that you are on a jury and the anticipated length of the trial. And you may inform others of the scheduling and the emergency contact information. Do not share any information about this case by any means of communication, including writing, email, telephone, internet, social media, etc. You must not talk about these things with other jurors until you begin your deliberations. As jurors, you may discuss this case together only after all the evidence has been presented, the attorneys have had an opportunity to give their closing arguments, and I've instructed you on the law. After I tell you begin your deliberations, you may discuss the case only in the jury room and only when all jurors are present. You must not allow anything that happens outside of this courtroom to affect your decision. During the trial, do not read, listen to, or watch any news reports or commentary about this case from any source. Do not use the internet, a dictionary, or any reference material in any way in your connection with this case, either on your own or as a group. Do not investigate the facts or the law or do any research regarding this case or any of the participants. Do not conduct any tests or experiments or visit the scene of any event involved in this case. If you happen to pass by the scene, do not stop to investigate. If you have cell phones, turn them off while you're in the courtroom and during the deliberations. If someone needs to contact you, give them the contact information and we'll make sure we get a message to you without delay. During the trial, do not speak to the defendants, witness, lawyer, anyone associated with it. Do not listen to anyone who tries to talk to you about this case or about any of the people or subjects involved in it. If someone asks you about this case, tell them you cannot discuss it. If that person continues to talk about this case, you must end the conversation. If you receive any information about this case from any source outside of the trial, even unintentionally, do not share that information with the other jurors. If you receive such information, or if anyone attempts to influence you or any other juror, you must immediately tell my bailiff. Keep an open mind throughout this trial. Do not make up your mind about the verdict or any issues until you have discussed this case with your fellow jurors during deliberation. Do not take anything I say or do during the trial as any indication of what I think about the facts, the witnesses, or what your verdict should be. I want to emphasize, do not use any form of research or communication during the course of this trial. You've been given badges to identify you as jurors from 9B. Please wear those while you're in the courthouse and lunch so that folks can recognize you as jurors hearing this case. That way parties, attorneys, and witnesses and others familiar with this case can avoid talking about this case in your presence. Some words and phrases used during the trial may have legal meanings that are different from their everyday use. If so, these words and phrases will be specifically defined in these instructions. Please listen carefully and follow the definitions that I give you at that time. Words and phrases that are not specifically defined in the instructions are to be applied using their ordinary, everyday use. Keep an open mind throughout this trial. There are two sides to be heard, and each must wait their turn. You must hear all the evidence before you begin your deliberation, because what the last witness says may change what you think of the first witness. Also, do not make up your mind about the verdict or any issue in this case until you've heard the attorney's arguments, my instructions in the law, and had an opportunity to discuss this case during deliberations. Do not take anything I say during the trial as indication what I think about witnesses or the verdict. Do not consider penalty or punishment. Your responsibility ends with a verdict. The people of the defendant are entitled to the individual opinion of each juror. That means each of you must make up your own determination. The defendants have pled not guilty to the charges. The fact that criminal charges have been filed against the defendant is not evidence that the charge is true. You must not be biased against the defendants just because they've been arrested, charged with a crime, or brought to trial. The defendant in a criminal case is presumed to be innocent. This presumption requires that the people prove each element of the crime and any special allegation beyond a reasonable doubt. Whenever I tell you the people must prove something, I mean they must prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is proof that leaves you in the abiding conviction that the charge is true. The evidence need not eliminate all possible doubt because everything in life is open to some possible or imaginary doubt. In deciding whether people have proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt, you must impartially compare and consider all the evidence that was received throughout the entire trial. Unless the evidence proves the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, they are entitled to an acquittal and you must find them not guilty. You must decide what the facts are. You must use only the evidence that's presented in the courtroom. Evidence is the sworn testimony of witnesses, the exhibits admitted into evidence, and anything else I tell you to consider as evidence. The attorneys will play an active role in the trial, but the attorneys are not witnesses. Nothing an attorney says is evidence. In their opening statements and closing arguments, the attorneys will discuss their case, but their remarks are not evidence. Their questions are not evidence. Only the witnesses' answers are evidence. The attorney's questions are significant only if they helped you to understand the witness's answers. Do not assume that something is true just because one of the attorneys asks a question that suggests it's true. There are many rules that guide us in conducting these trials, such as what questions can be asked, the form of a question, the proper basis for an answer. As one side presents the evidence, the other side has a right to object and ask me to decide if the evidence is permitted by these rules. When an attorney makes an objection, I will be making a ruling. Usually I will not be explaining it to you. Our exchange is purely procedural. I will usually decide immediately, but sometimes I may need to hear arguments outside of your presence. I will rule on the objections according to the law. If I sustain an objection, the witness will not be permitted to answer and you must ignore the question. Do not guess what the answer might have been or why I ruled as I did. If the answer has already been given and I order the testimony stricken from the record, you must disregard it and must not consider that testimony for any purpose. If I overrule an objection and the evidence is permitted, my ruling does not express any opinion by me of how you should treat the evidence. All the ruling says is the evidence is allowed to be heard by these rules. You may consider that information for whatever value you put on it. You must disregard anything you see or hear when the court is not in session, even if it is done or said by one of the parties or witnesses. The court reporter is making a complete record of everything that's being said during the trial. If it is necessary during your deliberations, the court reporter can read back her notes. Facts may be proved by direct or circumstantial evidence or by a combination of both. As an example, if you were witnessing a rabbit hopping through the snow, that would be direct evidence of a rabbit hopping through the snow. If, however, you did not see the rabbit hopping through the snow but did observe rabbit tracks in the snow, that would be considered circumstantial evidence of a rabbit hopping through the snow. Direct evidence can prove any fact by itself. Circumstantial evidence does not directly prove the fact to be decided, but is evidence of one fact or group of facts for which you may conclude the truth of another fact, the fact in question. Both direct and circumstantial evidence are acceptable types of evidence to prove or disprove the elements of a charge, including intent, mental state, and the acts necessary for conviction. Neither type of evidence, direct or circumstantial, is necessarily more reliable than the other. Neither is entitled to any greater weight than the other. You must decide whether the fact and issue has been proved based on all of the evidence. However, before you may rely on circumstantial evidence to conclude that a fact necessary to find the defendant guilty has been proved, you must be convinced that the people have proved each fact essential to that conclusion beyond a reasonable doubt. Also, before you may rely on circumstantial evidence to find the defendant guilty, you must be convinced that the only reasonable conclusion supported by the circumstantial evidence is that the defendant is guilty. If you can draw two or more reasonable conclusions from the circumstantial evidence, and one of those reasonable conclusions points to innocence and the other to guilt, you must accept the one that points to innocence. However, when considering circumstantial evidence, you must accept only reasonable conclusions and reject any you find to be unreasonable. You alone must judge the credibility or believability of witnesses. In deciding whether the testimony is true and accurate, use your common sense and experience. The testimony of each witness must be judged by the same standard. You must set aside any bias or prejudice that you may have. You may believe all, part, or none of any witness's testimony. Consider the testimony of each witness and decide how much of it you believe. In evaluating a witness's testimony, you may consider anything that reasonably tends to prove or disprove the truth or accuracy of that testimony. Among the factors you may consider are How well was the witness able to see, hear, or otherwise perceive the things about which they testified? How well was the witness able to remember and describe what happened? What was the witness's behavior while testifying? Did the witness understand the questions and answer them directly? Was the witness's testimony influenced by a factor such as bias or prejudice, a personal relationship with someone involved in the case, or a personal interest in how the case is decided? What was the witness's attitude about the case or about testifying? Did the witness make a statement in the past that is consistent or inconsistent with his or her testimony? How reasonable is the testimony when you consider all the other evidence in this case? Did the other evidence prove or disprove any fact about which the witness testified? Do not automatically reject testimony just because of inconsistencies or conflicts. Consider whether the differences are important or not. People sometimes honestly forget things or make mistakes about what they remember. Also, two people may witness the same thing, yet hear it or see it differently. Witnesses often refer to police reports during their testimony. This is perfectly proper for the attorneys and the witnesses to do this. However, police reports themselves are usually not evidence and they are just the officer's notes. Therefore, they will not be marked as evidence, and you will not be able to review them during deliberations. You should evaluate any testimony which refers to a police report in the same way you evaluate all testimony. You've been given notebooks and may take notes during the trial. Please do not take them from the courtroom. You may take notes into the jury deliberations room. You do not have to take notes. Some people like to take notes, some don't. Do what you're comfortable with. However, if you decide to take notes, these are some facts you may want to consider. Note-taking may tend to distract you, may affect your ability to listen carefully to all the testimony and to watch the witnesses as they testify. Notes are for your own individual use, just to help you remember what happened during the trial. Please keep in mind that the court reporter will read back any requested testimony if need be. At the end of the trial, your notes will be confiscated and destroyed. You may see me taking notes during the trial, sometimes on my computer. However, I'm taking notes for a different reason. Generally trying to keep track of the exhibits. So if you see me writing something down during the witness's testimony, that does not mean I attach any significance to that testimony. You should not consider in any way my actions or movements a suggestion how you should decide any question, and that I attach any significance to any testimony or item of evidence. If you have difficulty hearing the witnesses, please let me know. Witnesses are often nervous and sometimes speak softly. Just try to catch my attention. I'll remind them to speak louder. Thank you. And then at this time, folks, the lawyers may make an opening statement if they choose to do so. Remember, what an attorney says is not evidence. The opening statement is simply an outline of what the lawyer believes the evidence will show. The purpose of an opening statement is to assist you in the understanding of this case as it's presented. Do people wish to make their opening statement at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Just over 4 years ago, on April the 3rd of 22, at 2 o'clock in the morning, these two defendants, M. Tula Payton and DeAndre Martin, were involved in a gang-motivated confrontation at 10th and K. That confrontation escalated.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, counsel. Can we fix the lights? I feel like I'm watching in the dark. Is there one way to have it where you can see? We're still figuring out the lighting situation. There you are. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor. That conflict escalated. Guns were displayed. And what the evidence will tell you, once you've seen it all, is this is not a case of self-defense. But what the evidence is going to show you is that this is a standoff between these two groups of men from different gangs at the corner of 10th and K. A fatal standoff. A standoff that ends up costing the lives of Jontea Alexander Melinda Davis and Yamile Martinez Andrade. I could tell you what the evidence is going to show you, but I'm going to show you what the evidence is going to show you. During the course of this trial, you will see these videos repeatedly. They'll be broken down for you, described to you, bit by bit, person by person. So at the end of it, you'll be left with one inescapable conclusion, that these two men are guilty of 3 counts of murder beyond a reasonable doubt. That shooting left behind this scene. Shell casings, broken windows, and six decedents, including the 3 charged victims. As you will see, these groups of men come together along the K Street corridor as the bars and nightclubs are letting out shortly before 2 o'clock in the morning. And they end up at the corner here, where gunfire is exchanged, ultimately killing Mr. Harris, Miss Alexander, Mr. Hoy, Miss Martinez, and Mr. Turner at the corner, and Miss Davis down the street. A significant exchange of gunfire is what you will see, what you will hear. With broken windows and bullet holes along that corridor. What the evidence will tell you is you have 2 sides to this conflict. On one side, you have the defendant, M. Tula Payton. You will hear evidence about how he is both a garden block crip and a gang member of a gang known as Stars/Gutta, which you will hear from an expert describe how that makes him known as something as a cut crip. You will hear how he is with Mr. Turner, who's also a Stars/Gutta gas member, and also present that evening, a member of the Del Paso Heights Bloods, an allied gang to Stars, Sergio Harris. That's one side, one group of men that are part of this confrontation. On the other side, you have the defendant, DeAndre Martin, his brother, Smiley Martin, and Josh Hoy Lucchese. They are on the garden block crip side of this equation. But they come from a set of crips that do not believe in being a cut crip. These men run into each other out there on the 10th and K. These are the players you will see repeatedly in video surveillance of this evening. Mr. Payton, Mr. Turner, Mr. Harris, the defendant DeAndre Martin, his brother Smiley, and Mr. Hoy Lucchese. But this doesn't begin on K Street. It actually begins around 9:30 at 2570 Traction Avenue.
Bitch, you got buns, I got boundaries with us. Bitch, cause ain't nobody got a cover stone around me out. Man. Is you banging, man? Why, send that nigga. I see him. I see the police, nigga. They can't tell me nothing, no. I ain't know. That ain't even them. We on every car moving, don't give a fuck who it is, nigga. Over the overpass, it don't matter. Nigga, we on shit. Ain't no nigga getting past here, we don't see him, nigga. My mama, what you thought? Any nigga that didn't know I was outside like that, nigga, on my mama, I'm outside like that, bitch. And I'm in the second side. This ain't my area, bro. I'm from 29th Street. This ain't my area, bro. On my mama. On God. Any nigga feel some type of way, they know where we at. They been knowing where we at. They been knowing where my brothers is at. On God.
See, the evening begins out on Traction Avenue in North Sacramento. Territory that you will hear from the expert described as territory that is predominantly part of territory claimed by the Del Paso Heights Bloods and a gang known as Trigger Mob. You will hear that defendant DeAndre Martin with his brother Smiley and Mr. Hoy Lucchese were out there in rival territory. You will hear Smiley Martin describe it as the sucker side. And you will hear he's looking for a confrontation. You know where we at. If you feel that kind of way, you know where we at. You will hear about Smiley, who is live streaming from Traction Avenue on his account, TMK Smiley. You will hear an expert describe TMK, Trigger Mob Killer. But when the confrontation doesn't come, instead, the Martin brothers, Mr. Hoy Lucchese, Brittany Denrow, Stanley Jackson, the Frazier brothers, they go downtown. They go downtown to 10th and K. Meanwhile, downtown, while this live stream is occurring, the defendant, Mr. Payton and Mr. Turner, they arrive in the area of 10th and J around 10:15. They go to the Rodney's Liquor at 10th and J, and then they end up going to District 30 on K Street. The Martin brothers, Mr. Hoy Lucchese and their group, arrive shortly after midnight, coming in past the cathedral at 11th and K. And they loiter on K Street for hours, just hanging out in front of the bars and the nightclubs. Smiley Martin, defendant DeAndre Martin, Mr. Hoy. You will hear how Mr. Hoy, this group, are confrontational. You will hear how tension was escalating out there on the street. Mr. Hoy is challenging people. This is Crick. You will hear witnesses describe how it was tense. It became apparent something was going to occur. Around 1:35, Mr. Payton, Mr. Turner, they exit District 30. Mr. Payton goes across the street where the Martin brothers, Mr. Hoy, and their group are. Followed by Mr. Turner. Mr. Payton and Mr. Turner go to the Crest Theater. What you will hear from the expert is how the presence of Mr. Turner is important because it's a visible, personal reminder that Mr. Payton, the Garden Block Crip, is also stars, that he is a cut Crip. You will hear from an expert that the Martin brothers, Mr. Hoy, their group of Garden Block Crips don't believe in that. You will watch video of Smiley Martin talking about, oh no, we strictly Crippin'. We strictly Crippin'. The men work their way down the crest and eventually will end up at the corner. And once at the Crest Theater, you will hear, you will see how the confrontation becomes more tense. You will see Mr. Payton waving over other Stars gang members. The tension is escalating out there on K Street. And it escalates to where Mr. Payton, you will watch, leaves. He leaves. But he does not leave because there's obviously going to be problems. No, he leaves to go back to his vehicle. He leaves to retrieve a gun. As he turns the corner of 10th and K, he puts his hoodie back on. He goes past the London nightclub where Mr. Harris has been socializing all evening. Back past Rodney's Liquors and back to his vehicle, a vehicle that belongs to Mr. Turner. Mr. Payton goes back with a gun. And as he goes back, he tells other men in front of London who's at the corner. You see him engage in conversation and then hurriedly walk back to the corner. Here we are, 2.5 minutes before gunfire. Mr. Payton, Mr. Turner, their group of men are in a confrontation with the Martin brothers, Mr. Hoy, at the corner, and then guns are drawn. You will you will observe the crowd scatter. Mr. Hoy points a gun down the street while Mr. Payton is grabbing at the gun in his waistband. It's a standoff at the corner of 10th and K. Guns are drawn. Lines are drawn. Mr. Harris, Mr. Payton, Mr. Turner, their group come back to the corner. Because what the evidence will tell you is it's not a case about self-defense. What the evidence is going to tell you is it's a standoff. It's a standoff on the corner. You will see O'Shea White, who's with Sergio Harris at the London nightclub, get into an argument with Smiley Martin. With gun at his side, says, "Where are you from?" A well-known gang challenge. The evidence will show you Mr. Payton running from this gun battle, firing wildly down the street, flees the scene in that same vehicle. You will hear evidence that he's ultimately apprehended in Las Vegas, having left the state. Responding officers flood to the area of 10th and K. Going the opposite direction, the Martin brothers head back to where their vehicle was parked, toward the cathedral. Smiley discards his illegally modified, full automatic Glock handgun with a high-capacity magazine. Here in the alcove, the May building along K Street, before getting back to the cathedral. Officers find them, the Martin brothers, in front of the cathedral. because Smiley's been hit. He can't flee. What the evidence will tell you, it's not a whodunit. What the evidence will tell you, it's not a case about self-defense. What the evidence is going to show you is these two groups of men decided to get into a standoff at 10th and K to see who the biggest man on the corner would be. That's what the evidence will show you. The evidence will show you that that confrontation, that unwillingness to yield, to be the big man on the corner, ended up in the death of those three women, uninvolved in any way, shape, or form. You will hear evidence. Ms. Martinez was in Sacramento from Fresno for a concert, was standing in the wrong place at the wrong time. You will hear evidence that Ms. Davis was unhoused and was sitting against a building at the corner of 10th and J when she was hit by bullets that came down 10th Street. The evidence will show you, you will see Jontea Alexander pull up and park, albeit illegally, to pick up her sister after a night out at the nightclubs. She parks, she gets out, and within a minute, gunfire erupts. That's what the evidence will show you. Because much like the standoff at high noon in the Old West, you have these groups of men, Mtula Payton, Smiley Martin, DeAndre Martin, Sergio Harris, Mr. Turner, Mr. Hoy. It's all a standoff at the corner because of their gang politics, their gang rivalry, their gang issues. So when you look at all the evidence, you will be left with one clear, reasonable conclusion: that these two defendants are guilty of 3 counts of murder beyond a reasonable doubt. And when we get back up here, that is the verdict we will ask you to return. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Mr. Kingsbury, you prepared to give your closing argument this time?
I am, Judge.
All right, the floor is yours.
Okay, good people of the jury. What you just heard was a very simplistic yarn about a much more complicated and complex scene. And to gain a complete understanding of what went on in the early morning hours of April 3rd, 2022, you have to view the actions and motivations of individuals separately and in a broad context revealed by the evidence. And that context is not a simple story of 2 rival gangs planning violence, but rather it's a story of a crowded, unpredictable, alcohol-fueled environment where dozens of people from all over Sacramento, young people, moved in and out of each other's paths, where old friends reunited, where people encountered strangers, and where a sudden, unexpected spark set off a chain reaction of gunfire that Mr. Payton did not plan and that no one controlled. The prosecution will try to give you a simple, binary story of gang-motivated violence, but the evidence that you are going to see when you delve in to these videos tells a much more complicated story, a much more complicated scene. And let's walk through this evidence as it relates to Mr. Payton individually, step by step, moment by moment, exactly as a large amount of video evidence and the testimony of witnesses will show you. This obviously happened, this shooting event occurred at 2 o'clock in the morning on April 3rd. The evening for Mr. Payton didn't begin at 9:30. It began, he wasn't part of any 9:30 posting of any type of a video. It began at 10:30, or roughly 10:15, when he arrives downtown to meet up with his work friend and his good friend, Devasier Turner. They come in separate cars, and they park in front of Rodney's Liquor at the corner of 9th and J Street. Some of you may be familiar with that liquor store. And they are not coming downtown as part of a group or part of a street gang. They are not meeting up anyone for violence. They are two friends meeting each other to go out to a nightclub, like hundreds and hundreds of other young people who come down to the area of 10th and K Street. They're there to enjoy the nightlife, and for Mr. Payton, I can tell you, it's clear on the evidence, he is motivated to meet girls. Okay, that's the purpose of him coming down to the nightlife scene on K Street. He and Devasier Turner, they go into, when they first get there at roughly 10:15 to 10:30, they go into Rodney's Liquor Store where Mr. Turner purchases a bottle of Hennessy, which then when they walk outside of the area on the sidewalk, they share with people who are arriving from all over town, right? And you'll see Mr. Payton and Mr. Turner on video, they're greeting people, they're sharing their bottle of Hennessy, they smoke some marijuana over near Mr. Payton's car. They're relaxed, they're social, they're unhurried. They're waiting for the night to develop before everybody goes to whatever respective nightclub that they're going to go to. And over the next hour, these people, hundreds of people arrive and they go to these various nightclubs. There's the District 30, which is where Mr. Payton and Mr. Turner go. There's the London, where a gentleman by the name of Sergio Harris and Osha White, you'll hear some of these names, they go to a separate nightclub. There's the Dive Bar, there's El Santo, there's the Boiling Crab. There are a whole bunch of nightclubs that exist in this area of downtown Sacramento, which is the locus of the Sacramento nightlife. And you'll see sometime later, while Mr. Payton and Mr. Turner are in front of Rodney's Liquor, you'll see Sergio Harris. He'll arrive separately. He also parks right in front of Rodney's Liquor. And you'll see him arrive. He'll meet up with his cousin, Ike Harris, who is going to be a witness who testifies. And they end up going into the London, and you will see him socialize people coming up to Sergio Harris. They socialize. The people seem to want to shake his hand and greet him. He is a popular amongst the crowds, especially the crowd that goes into the London. And he is popular for a reason that will become clear to you as you understand the evidence in this case. You'll see that Sergio Harris and Mr. Payton do not have any prearranged agreement to meet up downtown. There is no contact between Mr. Payton and Sergio Harris beyond a brief handshake where they acknowledge each other. The evidence will show that Mr. Payton and Mr. Harris are separated by 11 years, and Mr. Payton is 27 years old, I believe at the time. Mr. Sergio Harris is 41, so they are practically, given that age group, from different generations. Mr. Payton knows who Sergio Harris is by reputation, and they did not grow up with each other. They are not part of the same group and not part of any type of gang subset. And once Mr. Payton, he breaks off, he walks, as you saw, he goes with his friend Devasier Turner into the District 30, which is about a block or so, block and a half away from where the London is on 10th Street. Once he is inside District 30, you will see that Smiley Martin and Joshua Hoy arrive downtown. Now these two people, Joshua Hoy and Smiley Martin, are two men who grew up with Mr. Payton in the exact same 29th Street neighborhood. The evidence will show that they are not gang rivals to Mr. Payton. They are not on opposite sides of a gang war. Rather, they are childhood friends. They grew up in the same 29th Street neighborhood, and they haven't seen each other in a number of years. They've remained in contact, but they have not seen each other in a number of years. And the videos that you are going to watch proves what I'm saying. It's actually there in the videos that you are going to watch. Now, before I discuss in more depth what those videos appear, the sum total of that videographic evidence, I need to talk to you about something that the prosecution is going to lean on heavily throughout this trial. The prosecution will present a police officer witness by the name of Lieutenant Zach Eaton, who has spent a number of years investigating street gangs in Sacramento. And he will give you his opinion testimony that there has been an active gang war raging for 3 decades in Sacramento. And it's between different neighborhoods and various subsets all over Sacramento. And he will tell you, he will come in here and he will tell you that everyone involved in this case can be sorted into 2 separate categories. And that these 2 categories of people that he sorts them into can represent 2 sides of this ongoing 30-year active gang war in Sacramento. And that for these individuals that he has thus categorized, the battle lines are clear, the allegiances are fixed, and that what happened on K Street was simply the latest episode in this ongoing conflict. This opinion testimony by Lieutenant Eaton is meant to supply the evidence of this comprehensive and universal theory of what motivated all of these disparate individuals who were involved and present and were involved in this shooting that occurred down at the corner of 10th and K. And here is where you need to pay close attention to the evidence that you're about to see. You need to pay close attention to what this evidence actually shows. Many of the actual and former gang members who take the stand as prosecution witnesses have stepbrothers, they have cousins, they have second cousins, uncles, aunts, and family members from the very disparate neighborhoods and gang subsets, and they belong to these subsets that Lieutenant Eaton says are at war with each other. Their own families of these individuals cross these lines that Lieutenant Eaton is going to try to draw for you in order to supply this theory. And Lieutenant Eaton's universal and all-consuming gang war mode of opinion also conflicts what you will see generally in the videographic evidence of what is going on at K Street. You're going to see young men identified with different neighborhood gangs, embracing, socializing, and spending their evening together. The truth is, and the evidence will show, that the real relationships between these people from these gang neighborhoods are far more complicated. They are more human and they are more nuanced than the prosecution's simple 2 sides theory allows. And Mr. Payton's relationships and actions that night, you will see them on video and they prove it. When these downtown nightclubs and bars let out at 1:30 in the morning, you will see something that completely contradicts the prosecution's theory that Mr. Payton's actions and intentions can be explained by some innate gang hostility, or that he was motivated to act and do what he did because of an ongoing war between these 2 opposing factions. You're going to see hundreds of young people crisscrossing throughout the downtown area. It is 1:30 in the morning. These multiple bars and nightclubs all let out at the same time. They close down at 1:30, and the club goers have spilled out into a large social scene on K Street between 10th and 11th Streets. Young women, you're going to see in the video, there's young men and young women are socializing, trying to meet each other. Couples are stumbling, back to their cars after drinking and partying all night. It was springtime, and spring had sprung, and this is almost sort of in the post-COVID, where people who have been locked up are now going downtown and enjoying the nightlife after a period where they were not allowed to do so. The bars and nightclubs have closed. All of these party goers have spilled out onto the streets. And there's this massive after-party scene where all these partygoers, they walk out into the night air and they take their time leaving, right? This after-party scene is really part of the social scene that draws people down to this K Street area. And you will see Mr. Payton. He will emerge from the District 30 nightclub, right? He's been inside, right, while other stuff has been going out on the street, out on the K Street, which will be clear to you. I'll just set that out there for you to look for. But when Mr. Payton emerges out of District 30, he looks north across K Street and at an angle more toward the 11th side, on the north side of K Street, and he sees Joshua Hoy, a man the state claims that Mr. Payton is engaged in a rival, he's a rival gang faction to Mr. Payton. And Mr. Payton crosses the street when he recognizes him, and he walks up to him and greets him. And then you will see, while he is doing that, you will see Smiley Martin, another man the state claims is part of a deadly rival gang faction to Mr. Payton, walk up behind Mr. Payton and embrace him from behind in a warm bear hug. A genuine, affectionate embrace. And this is not gang rivalry. This is not gang animosity. This is not the beginning of a standoff or the seeds of a plan for some coordinated attack. This is two young men, Mtula Payton and Smiley Martin, both 27 years old, who were raised in the same sandbox. They grew up together on 29th Street. They went to the same elementary school together. They are reconnecting after not having seen each other in the person for a number of years. And yes, they both grew up on the same 29th Street neighborhood, and they both self-identify as 29th Street Crips. You'll see handshakes. You'll see smiles. You'll see relaxed body language. You'll see Devazia Turner walk up and be introduced by Mr. Payton to Smiley Martin. And Mr. Payton chats for several minutes with Mr. Smiley Martin and Joshua Hoy, both from the same 29th Street Crip neighborhood, who Mr. Payton recognizes. And after socializing for a bit, you will see Mr. Payton and Mr. Turner take their leave, and they walk a short distance to about mid-block, where the Crest Theater is the opening to the Crest Theater. It's a well-lit area. Some of you may be familiar. There's a little box there that's well lit where you buy the ticket to go in. And it's sort of a broad area, right? And Mr. Payton and Mr. Turner, they stand there, and other people come up and they're greeting. What you see on the video is normal socializing, people approaching. And then several minutes later, a minute later, you'll see Smiley Martin and Joshua Hoy and some of the men that they came with, which includes DeAndre Martin. They walk up, and everybody hangs out in front of the Crest Theater. Other young men approach from various areas from the past, right? And you'll see more greetings, more socializing, more handshakes, hugs, more hugs. And this is not a battlefield. This is a nightlife crowd that has exited the nightclubs and is now socializing in the after-hours scene. And at this point, it's roughly 1:42 a.m. Mr. Payton breaks off from Devazia Turner, and he leaves this group, which includes Smiley Martin and others who have assembled there, and he walks alone toward his car. He goes, to do that, he has to walk up to the corner of 10th and K. He turns right on 10th, walks the full block down to J Street, and then turns right and goes approximately 4 car lengths to where his car is parked in front of Rodney's. And on his way there, he moves slowly. He stops to talk to people along the way. He's not rushing. He's not in a hurry. And he walks to his parked car, and you'll see him. And he gets into the front passenger seat of his parked car. where he spends some time, he rolls a joint, some type of a blunt or marijuana cigarette, whatever it's called. And when he is finished doing so, he sees and takes his firearm from his car, which is illegal for him to have, illegal for him to possess, but which he nevertheless carries for personal protection, and because downtown at 2 o'clock in the morning, with intoxicated crowds and young men spilling out onto the streets, he felt safer having it. And then he walked back towards 10th and K, again slowly, again stopping to talk to people, nothing about his behavior suggesting planning or coordination or intent. He's not arming himself in anticipation of using his firearm offensively or to engage in a gun battle with anyone, to and including his childhood friends, Smiley Martin and Joshua Boy. And Smiley Martin is the main friend. They're both 27 years old, and they're the ones who grew up together, and their parents and everything. When Mr. Payton returns to the corner of 10th and K Street, you'll see 70 to 80 people gathered there, right? This continuation of this spilled nightlife out under the crowd, this after scene, after party environment. And you'll see Mr. Payton hanging out and socializing right at the corner. When he gets there, he turns the corner and heads maybe a few yards up K Street. He's talking to, you can see him talking to girls. He doesn't continue on and go to the Crest Theater. He stops there. I think meets some girl that he's chatting up. And then nearly 12 and a half minutes later, Smiley Martin and Joshua Hoy and some of the people that they came with, they all meander up to that same location at the corner of 10th and K. And within several seconds, someone yells out a warning of some kind. There's a witness who will testify. Someone yells, "He's got a gun," or something of that nature. And this is at 1:57:13 in the morning. And the crowd, when someone yells that, right, there's tension in the air from various things that have gone on, which you will be apprised of. Outside on K Street, while Mr. Payton is inside the District 30. Someone yells, "He's got a gun." The crowd scatters. And what does Mr. Payton do? He doesn't run toward anyone. He doesn't draw his weapon. He doesn't join any group. He walks slowly northbound, right? Northbound on K Street. And you're going to see him. He's looking over his shoulder, trying to understand who and what caused this panicked dispersal from the corner of 10th and K Street. He sees Joshua Hoy standing at the corner of 10th and K Street, right at the corner of Sharif Jewelers, and he watches him point a finger, while others are also trying to identify the nature and origin of this threat. And as expected, about 90 full seconds pass during this relative tense scene, right? And people, including Mr. Payton, slowly drift back to the corner. And Mr. Payton goes around the corner of K and up K Street. He's scanning, he's looking for what this threat could be, and seeing none, he rejoins Joshua Hoy and Smiley Martin as more people return and coalesce right at that corner, which is the locus of this social life, this after-party social life. Right at the corner of Sharif Jewelers. People return to socializing with one difference. There is now massive tension in the air, and it is palpable. And then, 2 minutes later, comes the moment that changes everything. There's a young man by the name of Osha White. He's going to testify. He approaches from back up 10th Street. He walks toward K. I think he walks southbound along the east sidewalk and walks up after talking to a bunch of girls down at the intersection of 10th and J. And according to Mr. White, Smiley Martin asks him in a menacing manner, where are you from? What you looking at? And Osha White is not a person who gets intimidated. Instead, he gets his hackles up, and this is the beginning of a conflict between Osha White and Joshua Hoy. Not Osha White and Smiley Martin. Between Osha White and Joshua Hoy, who steps in ahead of Mr. White, of Mr. Martin, of Smiley Martin, and confronts Mr. White, and cuss words are exchanged. There are challenges, tension, obviously, which was high, increases, and at that point, 2 women get involved. You're going to hear from them. You're going to see them on the video. And you'll see them joining in initially on this confrontation, but then realizing at the last moment that they attempt to separate Osha White from Joshua Hoy. These 2 women try to quell the argument, and you'll see their hands pulling at these men, and then you'll see these men grab these women and yank them out of the way. They shoves them out from getting between them. And then in the moment that no one planned, while all this is going on, while these events are happening, Sergio Harris, who was with Mr. Osha White in the London, he is spying these events from afar. And he comes and he walks around the trunk of a tree that's located right at the corner of 10th and K. And he walks around, and you're going to see him duck down. And you're going to see him back his way toward the corner of 10th and K Street, right into close proximity of Joshua Hoy. And he shoots Joshua Hoy 4 times in rapid succession. And that is the moment. That's the first shot. That's the spark. And that's the moment this entire scene explodes. And that man, Amtula Payton, has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it. That spark. That making of that scene. And what results is sheer chaos. Gunfire erupts from multiple directions. Smiley Martin fires a fully automatic weapon towards Sergio Harris. Joshua Hoy, who has been fatally shot, manages to shoot Sergio Harris. Devasier Turner fires towards Smiley Martin and or DeAndre Martin. I'm not sure. You'll look at the video. You can determine. People scream. People run. Bullets fly across the intersection. And 2 unidentified shooters from half a block away, southbound on 10th Street near Kayak Alley. They shoot approximately 42 rounds, right, into this melee. And one thing is clear, that this is not a coordinated attack. This is a chain reaction gunfire. And where is Mr. Payton? When Sergio Harris fires that first shot, Mr. Payton is standing against the wall. And here's the corner. He's on the 10th Street side at the exact corner. He's standing against the wall of Sharif's Jewelers, not involved, not part of any confrontation, not part of any rival street gang that is going to take on Smiley Martin and Joshua Hoy, his childhood friends. And he's not aware of any plan to do so because there was no plan. Bullets start flying. And when they do, Mr. Payton runs with numerous other people northbound on 10th Street. He is struck by bullet fragments. He trips over his friend, Rashawn Gibson, who also runs in that direction and takes 2 bullets from behind as he runs in that direction. Rashawn Gibson falls. Mr. Payton trips over him, falls to the ground, gets up, continues to run. Mr. Payton does not know. He runs frantically, and he gets up and he keeps running. He doesn't know who is shooting. He does not know who began the shooting. He does not know where the shots are coming from, and he does not know who is firing at whom. He knows only that shots are being fired at him in his direction, as he flees northbound with all the others on 10th Street. And these shots, you're going to hear video, they continue and continue and continue. And as he runs, with bullets flying around him, ricocheting off parked cars and bumpers and objects and lamp posts, he draws his firearm from his hoodie, not from his waistband. That's going to be a very important fact, by the way. From his hoodie, where he has it concealed, not his waistband. And he fires back in the direction that these shots are coming at him from. He does so in a panicked attempt to protect himself and make it to the far corner of 10th and J. Now,
Speaker, I don't mean to interrupt you. Are we close?
I'm close. If you just give me 5 minutes, I'll be done.
Okay, we're gonna go a little bit into the lunch hour.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me finish. Before the evidence is going to show something else that's very important. Sergio Harris fires this first round at 2 minutes and 37 seconds. 2 o'clock in the morning and 37 seconds. Yamil Martinez is struck by one round, fatally struck by one round, and drops. And that occurs 2 seconds later at 2 o'clock in the morning and 39 seconds. Jontea Alexander runs northbound in the same direction that Mr. Payton does, and she is struck by a single bullet which kills her at 2 o'clock in the morning and 42 seconds. Melinda Davis, the homeless lady, is all the way in a different part across up 10th Street. And she is killed by a single round, and we know what the origin of that is, what gun did that. It was not Mr. Payton's. Mr. Payton's shots were all fired in a southbound direction. And he does not fire his gun until 2 o'clock in the morning and 47 seconds. Mr. Payton is not the actual killer of any of the named victims or of anyone. Not by timing, not by angle, and not by forensic evidence. And because the evidence cannot show that Mr. Payton killed anyone, the prosecution will turn to a theory based on implied malice. And they'll argue that by having retrieved a gun and returning to K Street to engage in some sort of combat with rival gang members, he is vicariously responsible for everything that went down at the corner of K Street that evening, including the deaths of those 3 women. But implied malice requires intent, it requires awareness, it requires a conscious disregard for life, and the evidence will show that Mtula Payton had none of those things. He had no motive, he had no animus, no gang animus, no plan, no coordination, no communication with Sergio Harris or Devasier Turner or Osha White about any confrontation that's going to go along with, against, no role in starting the gunfire. There was no assent or agreement by Mr. Payton to engage in combat with Smiley Martin and Joshua Hoy, his childhood friends. And remember what we discussed earlier about Lieutenant Eaton's gang war framework. This neat two-sided theory that is supposed to supply the universal motive that the prosecution cannot otherwise prove. That framework collapses under the weight of the video evidence that you're going to see. It collapses under the weight of the prosecution's own witnesses. The gang members the prosecution will call to the stand, like Mr. Payton, have friends and extended family members, cousins, uncles, stepbrothers, and extended family members from the very neighborhoods and gang subsets that the prosecution says are locked in this war with each other. Mr. Payton's actions cannot be driven by these lines that Lieutenant Eaton draws. And when you put all the pieces together, the videos, the witnesses, and as specific individuals, what you see on video, and the timing and the forensic analysis, a clear picture emerges. Mr. Payton was downtown to socialize. And when the bars let out, he reunited with his childhood friends, Smiley Martin and Joshua Hoy, after he exited District 30. He retrieved a firearm for personal protection and not to arm himself against any specific individual or specific threat. He stood against a wall while a conflict not of his making blew up, and he ran for his life northbound on 10th Street after gunfire erupted, fleeing with multiple others as bullets whizzed past his ears and ricocheted off the ground and lampposts and other objects. He was struck in the thumb and the shin. He did not fire his gun until a full 10 seconds after the initial gunfire erupted and after he had run 70 feet. He fired only in a panicked response to protect himself, and his shots came too late to have caused the deaths of any of the named victims. In the end of this trial, when you've seen these videos and heard these witnesses, you will see that the prosecution's case against Mr. Payton and Mr. DeAndre Martin rests on assumptions. Assumptions about common enemies that all gang members must have, and generalizations about what Mr. Payton must have thought and how Mr. Payton must have acted in reaction to those assumed hostilities. And these generalizations will collapse under the weight of the actual evidence. With respect to Mr. Payton, this evidence is going to show friendship and socializing, not gang coordination. You will see him embrace the men that the prosecution says he should be at war with. You'll see him laughing and talking and moving through a crowd the same way hundreds of other people did. The evidence will show, good people of the jury, that Mtula Payton is not an implied malice murderer. And a month from now, after we have waded through all of that evidence, I look forward to talking with you and discussing with you how the organon of the law will apply to this evidence as it relates to Mr. Payton. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Members in the audience, please remain seated. Folks of the jury, keep an open mind. Don't discuss this case. I only want to discuss it with you. Please stay away from 10th and K. If you do find yourself over there, do not stop to investigate. 1:30, please. People in the audience, please allow the jury to leave first.
Folks, you're going to leave your notebooks on your chairs, and then we're going to exit the door.
We're in recess.